Hi, in this second chapter we're going to talk about installing the second vertical dampener. Let's say the scenario, you have all the tension you got on this dampener, you can't like make it stronger, and the arm, you have a really high payload, you go in a rough environment, and the arm is still want to like move really fast up and down. Pretty much you don't have control on it. That's when you want to install the second dampener. It can also be if you go really high speed, you need more dampening. So how to install this? As I told you earlier, the default position of the dampener is on the second left hole at the top and the furthermost right at the bottom. So to be able to install the second dampener, I want to do this in symmetry, but this means I need to change the position of this hole to the third one. So what I need is an Allen key number 3, and I start unwinding this M4 screws. If the shaft starts to rotate around while you undo the screws, there's a small hole in the shaft. Looks like this. It allows you to insert any kind of object and lock this shaft so it doesn't start to like rotate with the screws if they're really like hard on the Loctite. So that's just a tip. So I will undo the screws now. Usually when you're out working with a black arm, always check that these screws are sitting tight, because there's a lot of vibrations that goes into the arm itself, and these small M4s can easily get undone. So always check that these are Loctited and sitting tight on the arm. So if I change the position of this one the very first time, it might sit very tight, as it should. It shouldn't have any play sidewise. So yeah, this is really tight. So I'm gonna undo this. If you find it very hard to slide this back and front, what you can do, you can take the small palm spacer we have here, and you can trim it down just a little bit, like so. That's gonna make it much more easier. Don't overdo it though, because if you trim it too much, you're gonna have play in the dampener, and we don't want that. This is just a tip if it's really stuck and you really struggle with it. So now it's a little bit shorter, and it should be quite easier to get it in. Of course, since I'm now on video, it's not easy at all, but there we go. So I'm gonna move it to the third hole like that, and then I'm gonna take my M4s and I'm gonna lock it in. So this I basically do to have enough space for the second dampener. So yeah, this one is done, and then I take the second dampener. You're gonna have a second one if you bought the black arm complete. And as I told you before, you place the shaft, so you have the long shaft, the long stainless steel part, where you have an offset of the grip of the dampener in this position, and you take the shorter spacer, place it next to it. You have the other shaft that has an equal length to the other spacer, like that, and you place it on the ball bearing. This one you want to change, you want to install in direct symmetry of the first one. So you don't want to have it pointing up like this, you want to have it pointing down like this. So I'm gonna try to squeeze this one in, and as I said before, if you have really trouble squeezing these in, you can trim down the palm spacer That's gonna make it a little bit easier to get it into the bones. So there we go. So now the first holes are in position, so I'm gonna lock these. And since you're going out on the road, you always put on some thread glue. I suggest Loctite 243 for these. Makes them sit nice and tight. And it usually dries pretty fast, so. Okay, so the first ones are in, and I'm gonna nudge this one into position. There we go. You probably wonder why there's no spring, and that's just to make it more visible for you guys. So I cleared this side of the black arm just to give it a little bit more clear overview what's going on. Okay, the second dampener is installed. So what to do next is to check that the first dampener is in symmetry with the second one. We want this distance to be equal this distance, so they work in perfect symmetry. We don't want the black arm to stop. For example, if I boom down, if it stops here first and it doesn't stop here, that puts all the pressure on this dampener on this side. I want them to stop equally. Since I changed the angle of this dampener compared to where I only ran with one single one, the external rubber stoppers and this dampener now aren't stopping in the correct position anymore. Right now I have the external rubber stoppers stopping way before the dampener stops, pretty much in the same angle. If I go here, you can see that it stops on the external rubber stoppers way before it stops on this second dampener. So what I can do is I can change the position of the external rubber stoppers just a little bit more. What I want to check is how far between I have on this first dampener, up and down. I have pretty much 3 millimeters in both end positions. So that means I can move the external rubber stoppers equally a little bit. So I'm gonna open this one up. Sorry, wrong way. So I'm gonna move this external rubber stoppers just a little bit, see if it's enough, yeah. So I can just give it. Yeah, I want it to be touched when I have like 0.5 millimeter, 1 millimeter before this rubber end stop on the dampener itself. It's better if it hits the external one than the dampener. And the same thing here. Yeah, I'm just gonna move this one up a little bit. So I think I'm roughly in the same angle downwards and upwards now. And it touches the external rubber stoppers right before it touches the end stop on the dampener. So my last step is to check the second dampener so it's properly aligned with the first one. And to do this, I undo the screw here, the grip on the second dampener, like so. Now it's loose. I check where it stops at the top. Check where it stops at the bottom. That's easier. And I just slide this. So now when it stops on this dampener, it also stops on this dampener, and that's the position I want to lock it in. So my position were around right there. Just gonna move this so, and I lock it. So yeah, that's a good position. So what happens now? I changed the position of the dampener on the grip itself. So it's aligned with the first dampener. So now when I boom down, it stops here, it stops here, it stops on the external rubber stoppers. When I go up, it stops here, and it stops on the external rubber stoppers. So basically it stops on all these three places pretty much on the same time, which is what I want. And last step I do now is I tighten these external rubber stoppers down. So as I said in the previous chapter, this doesn't start to move around when I have too much hammering going on the black arm. And in the next chapter I'm going to talk about installing the secondary tilt dampener. Thanks.